Is zeal always good? These are some thoughts I had on an experience that I had meeting a very zealous Jehovah's Witness. First, I looked up a basic definition of zeal. This is just from blueletterbible.com. It's just the main definition. There's some other subheadings and stuff like that. Excitement of mind, ardor, fervor of spirit. And then I looked up zeal in the concordance to see how many references there were. Now, this is just zeal related to people, not related to God or Jesus. It talked about Jews zealous for the law, being zealous toward God, zealous for spiritual gifts that would build up the church. Paul was zealous of the traditions of his fathers, being zealous for good works in Titus 2, of which preaching wasn't really named in that chapter. Being zealous in relation to repentance in Revelation 3. In relation to the repentance of the Corinthians on a church matter Paul was dealing with. Zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. The zeal of the Corinthians to give to the poor. The zeal Paul had in persecuting the church. The zeal of Epaphras in his prayers and concern for fellow Christians. It's interesting to notice in the Watchtower literature on the CD, if you look for zeal and zealous combined, it occurs 6,157 times, and almost always in connection with Watchtower-style preaching door to door. Do you think zeal can be either good or bad? Here are some comments from the book Letters of John Newton. John Newton wrote the lyrics to the famous hymn, Amazing Grace. Hardly any word in our language is more misunderstood or abused than zeal. It is used in the New Testament in both a good or bad sense, and it is considered as a vice or virtue according to its object and principle. He says that false zeal can be dangerous and hurtful to oneself and others. It is like haste in a man in the dark, who knows not where he is going, nor what harms he may suffer by his haste. False zeal spends its strength in defense of names and forms, the externals of religion, or the inventions of men. False zeal enforces its edicts by compulsion and severity. False zeal would willingly call for fire from heaven, but unable to do this, it kindles the flame of persecution, and if not providentially restrained, wages war with the peace, comfort, and liberty of all who disdain to wear its chains, and breathes threatening slaughter and destruction with an unrelenting spirit. The mildest weapons, which false zeal never employs alone, except where it is checked by a superior power, are calumny, contempt, and hatred, and the objects it seeks to harm are generally the quiet in the land, and those who worship God in spirit and in truth. In a word, false zeal resembles the craft by which it works, and is earthly, sensual, devilish. In things less essential, or not commanded, they invade the rights of the private judgment of others, and attempt to bind heavy yokes and impositions upon those whom Christ has made free. And while they readily tolerate, if not countenance, false doctrine and immorality, they exert all their strength and subtlety to disquiet or suppress those who differ from them in the slightest issue, if they profess to differ for conscience' sake. But Jesus has no such ministers. Their claim is utterly vain. None but those who are ignorant of the plainest truths can allow them this character. Their tempers, their behavior, the tenor of their professed instructions, and the total lack of efficacy and influence in their ministrations plainly demonstrate that Christ neither sent them nor owns them. But the true Christian zeal is a heavenly, gentle flame. It shines and warms, but knows not to destroy. It is the Spirit of Christ, infused with a sense of His love into the heart. It is a generous philanthropy and benevolence, which, like the light of the sun, diffuses itself to every object, and longs to be the instrument of good, if possible, to the whole race of mankind. It returns blessings for curses, prayers for harsh treatment. When I was studying with two witness ladies, they once brought another lady along. The original two ladies were pretty nice and personable. They were fun to talk to and had decent conversation skills. This one was different. Upon meeting me, she spent about 10 minutes reciting all her theocratic accomplishments. I had never met her before. Keep that in mind. She was able to work in so much information about her zeal for preaching, her new iPad that she only uses for Bible and Watchtower-related studies, her long history of being in the truth, her daughter that goes to Bethel and got married but decided not to have children so they could stay at Bethel and be devoted to the truth, going with her husband in their RV where the need was greater, etc. On and on. I was just sitting there trying to process this and feeling uncomfortable. As I pondered it later, I realized that she showed no interest whatsoever in me or anything about me. And she was at my house, sitting on my couch. I mean, what the heck? Where was the love bombing? It was also awkward in the sense that she seemed to have absolutely no awareness that I didn't even believe in their organization. And maybe I would find her recitations distasteful and even weird. Fast forward to our next study with just the original two ladies. I had thought about perhaps bringing up some of my feelings and reactions to this woman. I don't know, I just thought maybe it would make them think a little bit outside the box or something. So after a few minutes of the usual friendly pre-study banter, I said, "So, that lady that came last week, she was kind of different than you guys. What's your impression of her? Do you like her?" Now, they were not upset at me at asking this. In a way, they seemed to even relish it and were kind of smiling. But their response was non-committal, like, "Oh, she's okay." And then I said, "Is she like kind of higher up in the organization in rank than you guys are?" And they said, "Oh no, we don't have any ranks or levels or titles. We're all equal." So I'm like, well, okay. Then I said, with a chuckle, "She kind of reminds me of a Bible verse, but never mind, I don't think I should say." And they were really encouraging me, going, No, do tell. What? It'll be fine." So I quoted the verse from Matthew 6. "Beware of doing your good works before men, to be seen of them, because then you have already had your reward." Now they immediately knew what I was talking about, and even acknowledged how boastful she was. But then they justified it by saying, "She's just so zealous." I mentioned that this lady may not be a very good advertisement for the organization, and she has no idea of her effect on outsiders. And then I joked, maybe you shouldn't let her out too often. They were taking it well and even laughed a little. Oh my, I did get the feeling they don't totally like her, but wouldn't quite say that out loud. I also mentioned how Martin Luther was in a very works-oriented religious system like theirs, and he came to the conclusion that trying to keep all the law could only lead to one of two things, pride or despair. He said, from all of this, trying to keep the law, either self-confidence or despair must follow.